Hi, my name is Jim Ryder, the inventor of the Ryder buckle, also known as the locking Blevins buckle. And this is going to be our first video in a series that'll familiarize you with what they do, how to adjust them. Then later on in the subsequent videos, we'll get into the installation. But right now we're going to cover the basic points, how you measure your stirrup buckle, and what you should know going forward as you think about mounting these on your saddle. So the first thing you're going to need is something to measure with, a tape measure, and you're going to need an extra fine point Sharpie. That way you can mark which side the lock goes on when you're determining how you want to rig the tongue of the buckle. So the first thing we're going to do is measure the stirrup leather. And this is my daughter's saddle. And all you need to do is go to the part of the leather that's got the series of holes in it for your adjustment. Then take your tape, measure this, and this one measures about 2 3/8 inches, just under 2.5 inches. So in this application, you'll want to order a 2 1/2 inch rider buckle. And also the rider buckles, you've got an option. On the tongue, you can either order a stainless steel tongue, which we have here, or you can order an aluminum tongue. They're available in both. We are the only one in the world at this time that offers a stainless steel tongue. So once you determine that you need a 2 1/2 inch set of rider buckles, or a 2 inch or a 3 inch set, then what you will want to consider next is how you're going to rig the tongue of the buckle. As the buckle is rigged in this way, and this is how this saddle was originally rigged, the tail of your stirrup leather is on the outside, which comes down in front of your toe when your foot is in the stirrup. Now, by turning the tongue of the buckle over, which puts the locking assembly on this side, the outside, towards your rigging, the tail of your stirrup leather would actually be underneath the neck of your stirrup. And we do this on a lot of saddles, probably well over half the saddles that we retrofit. The people want this underneath the neck of their stirrup, especially if you happen to be shorter stature and have a lot of this tail hanging out over your foot while you're riding. So if you want it as it's rigged this way, this will put your locking assembly in between your stirrup leather and your fender. So you would want to take your pin and mark this area here. So that way you will know that your locking pin is on the outside, which is in between your fender and your stirrup leather. So what we would do is take this extra fine point pin and make a mark here that would give you reference to this as you're proceeding to install these. If you wanted your lock to be on this side, which would put it against your rigging, and we'll address that in the next part, you want to take your pin and put a mark here. That would denote where you want your locking pin as you assemble it and put your tongue together. So this locking pin would be on this side, which would put your locking assembly on this side, which would be against your horse. The first thing you're going to think of when you see this is, oh, is this going to interfere with my rigging? Is it going to interfere with my pad? None of that is true. You can go to anybody with the Martha Josie saddle or any type of saddle that we retrofit, and in Martha Josie's case, there's probably several thousand saddles in the field right now that have this locking assembly on the outside of your stirrup leather, which puts this lock against your rigging and against your saddle blanket. And we haven't had one complaint with this, or not one person is telling us that this interferes with anything. The reason for that being, as soon as you put your foot in the stirrup and roll it out, it rolls the locking assembly out away from your rigging and away from your blanket. So there's absolutely no reason that you have to be worried about any of this interfering with anything while you ride. So we'll just give you a little preview of how this locks. So once this goes into your adjustment holes and you slide this down over the tongue, you can hear it lock, and you can see that it's very easy to unlock. And this is set up just about perfectly. Now, if you found that this was too difficult to move up once you lifted the tab above the pin and you were still having trouble, you go on this side of the sleeve and take something as simple as a butter knife, put this knife in between the sleeve and the leather, run this down just a little bit, wiggle it just a little bit, and that will loosen up this sleeve and it will unlock even more easily. So that, in a nutshell, is the difference between a rider buckle and a Blevins buckle. If you adjust the rider buckle, it becomes easier to work with. If you adjust the Blevins buckle and squeeze it and collapse it where it fits very tight over this, and even doing that, you cannot be 100% sure that it won't come off while you're riding. It gets more difficult to use. So if this were a Blevins and you had this squeezed down very tight so you were fairly certain that it wasn't going to come off, it would be very difficult to slide the sleeve off of the tongue to make an adjustment. In the next video, we'll get into removing the rivets and how to go about setting the tongue into your stirrup leather. And again, we'll talk about these options of turning your tongue over to determine where you want to tell your stirrup leather while you're riding. Thanks. We appreciate you watching.